Hello everyone, and I would like to formally introduce you to my Alfa Romeo 2021 Stelvio car. I am so excited with this purchase. For those of you who were on the Vlogmas journey with me, I went to every luxury car dealership between Bellevue and Kirkland, and this is the car that I settled on. As we go through the car and I show you a little bit closer up what it's like, I think you'll understand how I came to this decision. But I wanted to do this reveal with a little bit of beautiful Pacific Northwest scenery. We're in Port Orchard right now. We drove over here so that I could get used to the car on an easy highway. So we drove over. It was a super smooth drive, and I am so excited to share this with you because I am so personally thrilled with this car. This is the first car that I have ever legally registered in my name, so even though I'm 32, it's a big purchase and a big decision for me that I put a lot of thought in. So let me show you a little bit of the car and my thought process, and then as we go on in time as a family, a car owner family, I will tell you a little bit more about what I think about the Stelvio and whether I think it's a good car. So a close-up of the color. It's not even that bright of a day, but I think you can get a little bit of an impression of how reflective it is. It does have a metallic detail, and it is called Visconti Verde. I'm starting with the color along with the beige seats that you will see shortly, because if you know a little bit about me, you'll know that the aesthetics of the car were very important to me. But as I got to know this car and other cars as well, other premium SUVs that I test drove, the actual construction of the car and how it drives became more and more important to me, despite my otherwise novice car enthusiast status. So I started to notice a lot of details about the car, even aesthetically. I started to notice how it's constructed at the front and small aesthetic details like this beautiful front design, as well as the logo of the car. So to tell you a little bit about the history, and this also goes hand in hand with how the car is constructed, it's made of Italian and German parts entirely put together in Italy. And that goes well, of course, with the history of Alfa Romeo, because as you can see from the logo, this is actually a logo that is the Milanese city logo on the left-hand side with the red cross, and on the right-hand side it is the Visconti family's logo with the snake eating a man. Yes, you got that right. I feel like that would never fly nowadays to create a logo like that, but given the history of this brand, which started with Alfa, and then later on in the early 1900s, Nicola Romeo joined to essentially bail out Alfa Romeo, or Alfa at that time, to allow it to continue. So Alfa was a Frenchman, Romeo Italian, the perfect car for me given my own heritage, and I absolutely fell in love with both the story and the aesthetic approach of the car. I think the front of the car is very unique. You don't see a lot of them driving around, partly because it is a little bit newer as well. I believe it only debuted in Los Angeles at the end of 2016 and then released to the public in 2017. So this is definitely a newer SUV, and then even newer yet in terms of Alfa Romeo establishing themselves as a premium brand in North America. A little bit about the engine. It's a 2-liter turbo with 280 horsepower, or as I like to say now that I am an aficionado, snake power. The engine is sourced from Ferrari, so for those who are into sports cars, this is basically considered to be as close as you can get to having a Ferrari SUV. That said, the price point is about the same in terms of window sticker of the MSRP as an Audi Q5, but given its newness to North America, I was able to negotiate the price down quite a bit, especially given that it is a 2021. I initially was going to go in and get a 2020 and negotiate based on that, but one in Visconti Verde could not be sourced for me with the Lusso interior. A little bit more about that later. So they were kind enough and gracious enough to extend the discount I had negotiated on the theoretical 2020 that couldn't be sourced on a 2021 instead. So this is as new as you get. In terms of the construction of Serpentino, as I've affectionately started to call him, his exterior is made of aluminum, or to those in England, aluminium, and that essentially allows the car to be faster than most SUVs. And the interesting thing is, I never thought that having a car that is inherently fast or is built for speed is something that I would ever be into, but even when you drive it slowly on small country roads, you still feel the power behind it, the steering, and also the braking, which I find to be very responsive as compared to some of the other cars that I tested out, especially the Q3, the Audi Q3, which I was also very serious about. So all the wheels have beautiful detailing aesthetically. You can see it's got some race car style detailing, but they also have independent suspension. I know, not something you ever thought you would hear me say on my channel, but essentially what that means is that it's what performance cars typically use. And how I notice that is the traction of the tire on the road when you're cornering on a smaller country road. You can see in Port Orchard here, there's a lot of twisty roads, which was great for practicing on the car, and it's something that I really notice again when I compare it to some of the other cars that I test drove. I feel like there's not a lot of content about it right now online, and it isn't because it doesn't score well in terms of safety and reviews as well. It's been shown to be just as reliable as any other SUV on the market, and I am taking a little bit of a risk because there just aren't as many reviews out there for Alfa Romeo Stelvios out, just because of how new it is to this market. But I'm excited to be a part of creating that kind of content and, you know, sharing my thoughts about it. Last facts and figures that I'll tell you about before we get into the car and I just share how pretty it is with you guys is that it has a carbon fiber drive shaft, which is pretty rare in the car world and also helps to enhance the performance of the car. And then last fact about the engine that I thought was amazing is that it allows for acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.4 seconds, which is pretty incredible. If you want to go race this car around, you can, but for me it is going to be a primarily business and pleasure vehicle that I am so excited to show you the inside of. So Serpentino is opening up for us. Let's get in and I will show you the inside of the car. It is extremely quiet on the inside as soon as you close the door, so now we can have a little bit more of a tete-a-tete where I show you the inside of the car. I think the beige isn't for everyone. Based on your feedback on my shopping vlog, I think it is more popular than car dealers like to admit or think when ordering vehicles. As a result of that, I think there's a small market of people, that included myself, that want a beige interior but really struggle to source one. So this is what's called the Lusso interior, which has a lot more real leather than a lot of other premium SUVs do. So I'll show you the dash layout in a moment, but before that I do want to show you the inside of the car otherwise. So you can see it has a fairly roomy back seat, but it's not as roomy as other cars like the larger Volvo SUV or like the Audi Q5. It would be more comparable to the Porsche Macan, where it's a little tiny bit bigger in terms of the trunk space and the rear of the car. And then the Audi Q5 or the BMW X3, both of which are a little tiny bit bigger, but these are very subtle differences. They all kind of operate within the same competitive market. In terms of Alfa Romeo's identification of their main competition, apparently they consider that to be the Jaguar F-Pace. I liked the styling of that car, both interior and exterior, but didn't like its performance. So that's kind of how I got here, actually, in a way. So here is some of the detailing on the seats. All of the leather on this car is hand-stitched, and I think that attention to detail really shows up. And I have the Lusso TI package with the walnut trim. There's also a darker oak trim available, which is more of a gray tinged wood or tinted wood. And you can see how brand new it is because it still has a sticker. And I was waiting for my online family to peel this off. So let's do that together so we can actually see the screen together. Look at that. Wasn't that just so satisfying? I won't play too much with the sat nav today. It's still something that I'm starting to get to know, but there is of course the built-in navigation audio package with Sirius, etc. But on top of that, like other post 2018 SUVs, at least from all luxury dealers, there is built-in CarPlay as well, or Android, so you can plug your phone in and use its internal apps and features as well. There's a decent storage, but I wouldn't say that this car is, you know, top of mind in terms of voluminous storage. In terms of the doors especially, it's relatively small. Glove compartment, medium sized. Here as well, I would say this is kind of more medium sized, definitely a more European rather than American perspective as to how much stuff you might want to drive around with towards the front of the car. But there's a little nifty compartment here for what I use for my sunglasses. Let me know, what else do people put in there? I'm not really sure. It doesn't fit an umbrella, so my Pacific Northwest umbrella is over here at all times. Here is the leather dash. I think the white stitching is really beautiful and premium. I love the texture, the matte texture of the wood here with the walnut. This is the end of the day, so it's getting a little bit dusky outside, but I think you can still see really all of the beautiful detailing, including the Italian flag here. I'm only a quarter Italian, but it is on my grandmother's side, so it feels very prominent for me growing up in terms of the culture, and I still have a lot of family there, all of whom are really thrilled that I bought this car. You know, it's just a more well-known car in Europe. There's definitely a lot more excitement around it. I've noticed that a lot of people kind of give the car a bit of a puzzled look because I don't think that they necessarily recognize what brand it is. But if you've known me for a while online, you'll know that's not something that would bother me at all. I actually love how unique it is, and I love that it honors my European heritage. So I'm really proud to be driving it. It's definitely, you know, something that I feel so grateful to have, and I feel like it fits my personal style, aesthetic, values really well. So that's my thought process about it. I don't necessarily think that it would be for everyone, but it is so far for me. The steering wheel is leather covered, but otherwise really simple details, which I really like. All of the buttons are pretty much located, the ones that you would want while you're driving, on the steering wheel, including the start stop. I really like how prominent and easy to find this is. I'm told by the dealer this is how they try and sell a car. Instead of, you know, focusing on things that matter more to me, apparently this is located in the same place as it would be on a Ferrari. That means nothing to me, but it may mean something to someone else. But I like how intuitive everything is. I found that even my very first time test driving it, I did not test drive the Lusso, I test drove the sport version. So it wasn't the right fit for me in terms of driving. You know, it had the adaptive sport settings on the wheel, which really were not for me, but nonetheless, I found it to be very responsive, and I found the layout of everything and how everything is constructed to be very intuitive, which I really enjoyed. So you can't get too much enjoyment of that based on how overcast it is right now, but it is, you know, a double pane sunroof that allows a lot of light into the car, and I think along with the beige interior really allows you to feel very cozy but not enclosed. In here it feels very spacious and open, which I really enjoy. I'm just going to show you the trunk so you can get an idea of how roomy it is. I would not say it's the roomiest of SUV trunks, but that's not something that was hugely on my priority list personally. I just wanted it to be big enough so if I want to buy, let's say, a coffee table or go skiing, things like that will be able to fit, you know, very easily in here. And yeah, this is the trunk. I think it's a little bit smaller, like I said, than the BMW trunk or the Q5 trunk, but a little bit bigger than the Audi Q3. And very comparable to the Macan. Thank you, Serpentino. All right, so we're about ready to head home, but I thought I would get my passenger to weigh in on any thoughts you might have.
It's like traveling in your best sofa.
So you find it comfy?
Oh, very comfy. Yes, it's very pretty also with all the stitching and everything.
I'm glad you like how it turned out. To some extent, it was as much of a surprise to me as it was to my mom. I didn't go with her to test drive all of these vehicles, so she didn't really get much to compare it with. But that said, the Lusso was not something that I had really seen at all. So it was a little bit of a leap of faith for me to get that, but I was pretty sure I would like it, having compared, you know, the other beige interiors of different SUVs. And I had seen a Lusso with the beige leather and the walnut trim at the dealer for the Giulia, which is their, you know, sedan, luxury sedan that they've had out for a while. So I was able to see that, but the green, the Visconti Verde, I hadn't seen at all. I kind of knew how excited I was to get it though, and to get, you know, beautiful emerald green car that's also a little bit of a nod to my jewelry designer ways and business as well. I knew how excited I was about that and how invested I was in that when I started to shop for things to match a car that I had not even bought yet, including this sweater. I went in thinking I would buy a sapphire blue car, but in the end I got emerald instead.
Sometimes you're entitled to change your mind.
Yes, and I think that's what happened as well in terms of starting to care more and more about how the car is made, the history a little bit, but for the most part just how it feels in terms of the driving quality, the steering, the braking. I've come to appreciate the results of that more and more, and I think that really was a journey that I went through. So what I was looking for aesthetically, the beige leather, wood trim, things like that, I still, you know, that didn't change, so I was not really swayable when it came to that. But when it came to the actual driving of the car, I didn't care about that at all when I started shopping for it, but the more I kind of got to know that, the more I became into it. So with this proper introduction and all of that said, I might make another video comparing some of the other SUVs that I test drove with this one, if that's something you would like to see. But other than that, I think what would be most useful is a follow-up video when I've actually driven this car a little bit more. I've only had it for a couple of days and tried to drive it every day that I've had it, but otherwise, you know, we still have a lot of adventuring to do. So more videos to come. Hopefully you guys enjoyed being part of this shopping journey with me. Thank you for following it along and being so invested in it as well. And I will see you in my next installment on style, whatever kind of style that may bring us in 2021.
Yes, better year everybody. Bye.